Time to pop it up here on Common Knowledge, the show where I look at common cards and tell you whether they are worth playing in Pauper. Our first card of the day is Thundersteel Colossus. It is a 7/7 vehicle. Artifact vehicle. It's got trample and haste. You have to pay 7 colorless mana for it. And to crew this vehicle, you got to crew 2. That means you tap any number of creatures you control with power 2 or more, and this vehicle becomes an artifact creature until the end of turn. So you pay 7 mana for an artifact that sits on the table. It's got trample, it's got haste, it's got 7/7. Look at all those stats. But it's not a creature, so it can't really do anything until you tap a couple things to crew it. This card has seen play, not in Pauper, to my knowledge. Maybe somebody has put it in a Pauper deck. But this card has seen play with another Kamigawa Neon Dynasty card, Greasefang, where you were able to bring a vehicle from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then I think you put it back in your hand at the end of turn. So the idea that you are cheating the mana cost of this, that you're putting this in your graveyard in some way, discarding it or milling it, or however you end up doing it, you put this into the graveyard, and then Greasefang gets it back. I think it even I think it might actually cheat the crew cost potentially too. I'm not sure. I'm not going to look up Greasefang. That's not a common card, but that's how a lot of people use it. You get a 7/7 trample haste for free or much cheaper, and then you put it back in your hand. You find another way to discard it. You can keep that loop going on as long as you control Greasefang. Pauper doesn't really have that ability to do that as cleanly, for sure. You know, there are ways to reanimate creatures. This isn't a creature. Believe there are ways to reanimate artifacts in Pauper. Can't think of one off the top of my head. I'm sure they're out there. But I think if that is the case, this is not necessarily one of the first ones you want to go to. I understand that 7/7 trample haste sounds great. What's wrong with that? But I think the things that hold this card back hold it way back. And I don't think it gets a good score then. As much as I like Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, I like these mech vehicle ideas that they have here. I don't think this card quite makes it into a Pauper deck. We'll give this a 2. Next up is Dimir Informant for 2 and a blue. It's a 1/4 human rogue. When it enters, you surveil 2. It's okay. It's okay. What is the Spider-Man card that just came out? Mob Lookout, I think. Yeah, Mob Lookout. It's one in a hybrid Dimir, and it's a 0/3. And when it enters, a creature you control connives. I think we've actually done this on the channel before. I think this is just better. I think this is just better. I mean, yeah, you get to surveil 2. Potentially, you get to put more stuff in your graveyard. It's got stronger stats. It's a 1/4 instead of a 0/3. Although this is a 0/3 that connives, so it could become a 1/4 when it comes into play. But also, you're paying 2 and a blue for this. You're paying a whole extra mana. And I think just generally, Mob Lookout's probably just a better card. I think it would replace Dimir Informant in any deck you're considering to play Dimir Informant, and I don't think people were really considering playing Dimir Informant before anyway. I think there was some talk about Mob Lookout. I ended up buying some copies of it. One, because it wasn't plastered with Spider-Man all over it, even despite being a Spider-Man card. And 2, it just had enough value that, you know, what if this became a good Pauper card? It might be nice to have some copies of that. Never had that thought with the Informant. So I think it's just a little disappointing in that way. I don't see it going in pretty much any decks. Like, what do you put this in Terror so you can surveil a couple of instants and sorceries into your yard? You're not doing that. You're paying 3 mana for this guy. No, there's just cheaper ways of getting that effect for you. So we'll give this a 2.4, I think. Like, it's not a terrible effect. It just costs a little too much. 2.4, I think that's fair. Next on the docket is Anna Disciple. Anna Disciple? Anna? Not sure. It's a single green mana for a 1/1 human wizard. It's got a couple of abilities on it. So despite being a green mana to cast it and being a green card, it's got a blue ability and a black ability. The blue ability, you pay a blue, you tap it, and target creature gains flying until end of turn. Or you can pay a black and tap it, and target creature gets a -2 and -0 until end of turn. This is cool. These are cool cards. You know, Apocalypse had some interesting ideas. You're doing more multicolor stuff. Today we'd call this like a Sultai card because that's, you know, we didn't have those clans back in the day. Interesting. I own a copy of this. I know I do. It's got to be in my green commons at this point, but yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It's cool that you got these abilities. Obviously, the mana costs are making it a little difficult to get the full value out of this. You know, you could certainly play something that makes mana of any color. There's lots of color fixing options in Pauper. But I don't know if either of these effects are quite good enough. It is a 1 toughness creature, so it's gonna die to a lot of things. You're tapping it down to use the ability, so you don't even get to block with it. I think it's probably just a little too slow for this environment. It's cool that, you know, it could give your creature evasion, get over the top. It could slow down an opponent's creature. Pretty cool. Potentially even force a bad trade or allow you to live in a scenario that would have been a trade, and now you get to win that duel. Some cool ideas, but overall, the idea that you're paying this many resources of both a creature being tapped and a color of mana, that is probably not your main color of mana if you're playing the green that this costs to play it in the first place. Yeah. I love the art. I love the idea of the card. I like something being a little bit more modal like this, where it has a lot of potential use cases, but none of those potential use cases are strong enough to really justify the use of the card. And so we'll unfortunately end up giving it a 2.8 and keep on going. This is what are I want to do? This is our 4th card of the day, and it's Kosi. That's an I, right? Yeah, that's an I. Kosi's Ravager. It's 3 and a red for a 2/2 elemental creature, and it's got landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, you can have this creature deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. So we've mentioned it before. No common planeswalkers yet. So this is really just damage that goes right to the face. And it's not bad. Land falling damage to the face. But I think we have cheaper. We have like Sabotender, right? That's just from Final Fantasy. Sabotender. Look at that guy. He's only 2 mana. He's got reach. And he does it to each opponent too. Not that if you're playing Pauper Commander, maybe that matters to you. But he's kind of just better, right? You lose a point of toughness. But you also lose 2 of the mana cost. And you gain reach. I think that Sabotender just kind of makes the Ravager completely unnecessary, unfortunately. So we'll give this a 2.4, I think. That's probably too much. 4 mana for a 2/2 with an ability that's not all that useful. Let's just bump it down to a 2. Bump it down to a 2 and move on to Caregiver. For a single white mana, you get a 1/1 human cleric, and you can pay a mana or pay a white mana, sacrifice a creature, not even this creature, sacrifice a creature and prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to any target this turn. That's not very good. Most of these bandagey style effects, I'm right? That's what bandage does. Bandage prevents 1 damage and you draw a card. Boom, look at that. That can also prevent the damage to a player. Well, this one does too. But man, having to sacrifice an entire creature to prevent 1 single damage, and you have to pay another mana to do it. That's rough. We looked at the Bodyguard a handful of episodes ago, and that just sacrifices and gives something protection. You know, sure, it doesn't help you as the player. It doesn't prevent the damage from you, but that just, you know, it can sacrifice itself for free. This is repeatable in that if you had a ton of little tokens and also a ton of white mana, you should just win the game a different way if that's the case. But if you had both of those things, you could prevent a lot of damage. I would rather just swing in with all of my little 1/1 tokens instead of that. Yeah. Man, Ravnica City of Guilds. I don't remember this card at all, and I played some Ravnica. Played a lot of Ravnica, in fact. Yeah, pretty bad. I'm gonna give this a. We haven't done this for a while, but I'm gonna give this the 1. I'm gonna just give it a 1. It's a really, really bad Magic card. Even in Pauper. Cave of Temptation. It's a land. It's from Modern Horizons originally, but it's shown up in some Commander and a Commander thing, and then Jumpstart too. Foundation Jumpstart. Cave of Temptation. It's a land. It taps for colorless. You can pay 1 and tap it to make a mana of any color, so it filters that way. Or you can pay 4, tap it, and sacrifice this land to put 2 1/1 counters on a target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. That's a bummer. That's a bummer. The sorcery speed, I think, doesn't kill it, because I think the card's already been killed at this point. There's just too many lands, too many filter lands that do more than this. That you get the ones that surveil when they come in, the ones that scry when they come in. Those are both probably better than this. But really, the thing that for me kills it the most is the sorcery speed. Being able to put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature for 5 mana and losing this land entirely. That's a lot to ask. I mean, I guess in the late game you got mana to burn. You need a little extra power to break through. I see it. I see why you might want to try this. But I think 2 1/1 counters is just not enough of a boost. And doing this at sorcery speed means you can't even, mess up a combat. You can't even use it as a combat trick in that way. And that's not good. That's not really that good at all. So we'll give this, and I don't know when I'm writing down my tick marks. I need to get better at that. We'll give this a. Filter lands are pretty good generally. Let's go ahead and give this a 2.9. Lost in Space is 3 and a blue for an instant from Edge of Eternities. And it says target artifact or creature's owner puts it on the top, or puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of their library. And then you get to surveil 1. I always think these effects cost a little too much. I could be wrong. I'm sure Wizards has done plenty of testing to say, this is a blue way to remove a creature without destroying it. If you put it at the bottom of if they put it at the bottom of their library, you're probably never going to see that creature for the rest of the game. That instance of that creature. I mean, you get to play up to 4 copies of a creature. Maybe you'll find the other one. Or they put it on the top of their library, and you have not only disrupted the tempo of of them having to recast the creature, but you've also disrupted the tempo of their next draw. That they have to waste a draw on a card they already know that has already been part of their game plan. They were hoping for a new card that allows them to further the game in some way, further their own thing. So it really is a big tempo loss when you think of it like that. And so I guess it justifies its mana cost. I just don't see people using this enough where I feel like the value is there. It is nice that it adds a surveil on top of it. You know, you not only screw up their own draw potentially, but you fix your own next draw. That's cool. Art's great. I think the biggest problem is 4 mana is just a lot to ask for any effect, for any removal effect anyway. And I think you'd rather just play an unsummon than this. You'd rather just bounce something back to their hand. You get the enough tempo loss, and you only paid a single mana for it, and you get to swing in, or you get to stop damage. And so I think unsummons are just good enough that having this extra text, this extra ability to put it on top or bottom of a library, or at least the opponent gets to choose that. But you get the extra gravy on this, plus the extra gravy of a surveil. I still don't think you'd do it. I think you could just play an unsummon and win the game before it matters as much. So I like this. I'm turning the corner a little bit on the mana cost issue, but I still think overall you're paying more than you'd want to pay in a deck, and this is probably just more of a limited card at that point, and or something you should put in like a cube. Like if I had to draft a card like this, I think I would play it and end up really liking it. But would I consciously on that one, would I consciously put this into a deck that I'm building? And I don't think I would. Did I give this a score? I don't think I did. 2.7. Move on to Time Ebb. Okay. I think we kind of just did that, right? That one was at instant speed. It costs 4 mana. This one is 2 and a blue mana, so a little cheaper. Sorcery, that's a little slower. But you put target creature on top of its owner's library. Time Ebb, what a classic from Portal originally, but also showed up in Tempest. I remember this Portal art more than I remember the Tempest art. I remember the Second Age art. Oh, I think I probably actually remember the starter art, the starter 99 specifically, more than I remember the other ones. And it's the same art. It's just that I think I have this copy and I don't have this copy. And I think I have this copy from a Mystery Booster 2 thing I got. Time Ebb. Time Ebbs aren't great. Kind of for all the reasons we just talked about, but even especially at this, because it's sorcery speed. Was the other one an opponent's creature? Target artifact or creature's owner, huh? So you can do it to yourself too. I mean, you can also do this one to yourself, but at sorcery speed you wouldn't. At instant speed it might be a way of saving your own creature, and that has a little bit more utility than this. But I just don't think you'd use any of them. I'm not a Time Ebb guy. So we'll give this a, what did I give that last one? Like a higher 2? I got to give this like a mid 1, I think. I'm going to give this a 1.6. I'm really not a Time Ebb guy. Tendrils of Despair is our next card. It's a single black mana for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sack a creature. Target opponent discards 2 cards. That's interesting. It's kind of interesting. We've seen other effects where you sack the creature and you draw 2 cards of your own. So sacking a creature forcing an opponent to discard a couple cards. You also get card advantage that way. It's interesting. There's just not necessarily cheaper forms of discard, but I think there's just more repeatable forms of discard in Pauper that are plenty playable already, to the point that I don't think you need this. Although it's not bad. It's really not bad. I kind of don't hate this. I do not see this get played. I think you might just play a Wrench Mind over this, which is 2 black mana, but it forces the opponent to discard 2 cards or discard an artifact card if they've got an artifact. That being said, I'm kind of impressed. I'm kind of impressed with this card. I think we're gonna put it just out of the 5 tier, like the 5 and up, where I say like, oh, those are cards that you might play in Pauper. And I think it's a little too late now, but I feel like maybe I should have even adjusted the scale to have 6 maybe be the start, where you like these are cards that you would actually play in a Pauper deck, and then go down and give ourselves a little bit more room to talk about cards that are potentially give a little bit more granularity to the lower tiers of cards like this. But from the scale that we've been working on, I'm going to give this a 4.2. 4.2. I think it's pretty solid, honestly. And if somebody put this in a Pauper deck, I would totally understand why. I just haven't seen it. And I don't think I would put it in my deck. But I would not scoff at anyone who tried to put it in theirs. Next card, and the last card of the day, is Summary Judgment. It's 1 and a white for an instant. Summary Judgment deals 3 damage to target tapped creature. It also has Addendum. If you cast this spell during your main phase, it deals 5 damage instead. Originally from Ravnica Allegiance. Okay, so white has these abilities to either deal direct damage to an attacking or blocking creature, or tapped creatures. I think more recently they've started moving into tapped creatures, because that gives you a little bit more flexibility in some ways, a little bit more restrictions in other ways. It gives you a little bit more timing to do it with. That if your opponent attacked you with a card, attacked you with a creature, you get both their turn and your next turn to use this. In fact, they're trying to give you even more incentive to use this during your turn, during your main phase, where you get to deal 5 damage instead. 5 damage is pretty good in Pauper. That takes out a Tolarian Terror. That's a big deal. It can take out a Writhing Chrysalis that's already sacrificed both of its Eldrazi spawns or scions. Spawns. Five's a good number. 5's a good number in Pauper. It's still a little narrow, and it costs a little too much. Like two mana to deal 5 damage. That's just a good deal. That's a good deal. But 2 mana to deal 3 damage, not so good of a deal. White has access to Sunlance, which it was planar chaos, so it was kind of a color break here on purpose. That's why it looks like this, because it was a break then. But that's the closest thing white got to a lightning bolt. And it's cool. Sunlance is a cool card. Summary Judgment's not bad. It's not. I think there are just other cards at this point that you'd probably end up playing more. There's is Ride's End. Is Ride's End a common? It is. Ride's End a common. What if you could just exile a creature or a vehicle? And yeah, you do it at 5 mana, but if it's a tapped permanent, you paying 3 less. You're paying the same mana cost as Summary Judgment, and you get to exile that creature or vehicle. And I think that's really the difference. You'd probably just end up playing Rides End anytime you think about playing Summary Judgment, because this has to be tapped. This has the ability to, if you're late in the game and you have 5 mana, you can just use the regular exile. But this creature has to be tapped to do that, and I think that's kind of a deal breaker in a lot of ways. And also, if you're going up against anybody who's got a vigilant creature, you're done. You're done. That ain't gonna work. So we'll give this 2.2. 2.2. Call it a day. That is my summary judgment of Summary Judgment. We'll see you next time on, what the hell's the name of the show? Common Knowledge. That's what it's called. We'll see you next time. Bye.